Assalamualaikum students. Assalamualaikum students. Good evening to everyone. Am I audible to you all? Can you see the slide? Yeah, thank you. So before starting today's session, I would like to share few announcements. Number one, regarding the midterm exam. You are going to have the midterm exam with the content from module 1 till module 6. That means you have the content for your exam from module 1, module 2, module 3, 4, 5, and 6. Totally 6 modules are included in your midterm exam. I hope there won't be any open questions, but they may increase the MCQs. I think earlier it is 30, now it become maybe 50, I think. So once the college confirm these details, the content is confirmed, but the exam pattern, whether it is 50 MCQ or what, that once the college is confirmed and when they tell me that I can give an announcement, official announcement on Blackboard, I will surely publish the announcement on the Blackboard. So right now the content is confirmed. You will be having module 1, module 2, module 3, 4, 5, and 6. So as I said in the previous session, I have recorded module 3 and the module 4, the first part. Both are already shared with you all in the course message. I hope you all received the message. Can anyone please confirm? Have you received the link for the recordings? Module 3 and module 4. Have anyone visited the link? Yeah, thank you. That means every student has received the same thing because it's sent through the Blackboard. Um, So these are the details now, and the remaining slides of the module 4 will be soon shared with you all as a recording. And the third announcement is regarding the assignment 1. So the assignment 1, you have the due date of July 16th. So please make sure that um, you submit your solution without fail on or before 16th. Okay. So these things only I have announcements for today. And let us start with the module 5. So in module 5, we are going to learn the concepts related to the malicious software, types of malicious software, the notion of advanced persistent threat, APT, then various types of viruses, worms, social engineering, and also the countermeasures for all these things. One by one, let us start and we will see now. So the malware is, is responsible for millions of cyber attacks every year, affecting individuals, businesses, hospitals, banks, and even the governments. So the malicious software, commonly it is called as malware. So according to NIST SP 883, the malware is a program that is secretly installed on a computer with the intention of compromising the confidentiality, integrity, or availability. So, the CIA of data, applications, or the operating systems, or even simply distributing or annoying the victim. So in simple words, I can say that the malware is software intentionally designed to damage, to disrupt, to steal the information, or to gain unauthorized access to the computer systems. So the malware can steal the confidential information, or they can delete or modify the important files, the log files, and the demand ransom. So it can slow down or crash the systems. It can spread across the networks. It can spy on the user activities. It can steal the banking credentials. It can allow the hackers to remotely control the computers. So the CIA triad and malware. So the malware often attacks one or more security objectives, like confidentiality will be affected by the malwares, like stealing the password, banking details, or releasing the personal information on public domains. Likewise, then when you look at the integrity will be affected by malware, like modifying or deleting the files. Then availability will be affected by crashing the systems or encrypting the files without user notice or making them unavailable. Likewise, so in overall, the malware is malicious software that is designed to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the computer systems. It may exist as a program. It may exist as a program fragment that requires a host application, like a virus or logic bomb, or as an independent program like warm or boot, or by understanding how different types of malware operate and spread, the organizations can implement stronger security controls and reduce the risk of cyber attacks. So now let us see the malware terminology. So here in the slide, you can see some of the most frequently used types of malicious software in the real world cyber attacks. In the real world cyber attacks. So when you understand their differences, then it will help as a security professional. We can easily identify the threat and we can respond with the countermeasure appropriately. So, a virus is a malware that attaches itself to a legitimate program, or it is going to file and it is going to spread when the program is executed. Then worm, which is a self-contained malware program that automatically copies itself to other computers over the network. Then logic bomb. See, a logic bomb is a malicious code that remains inactive until a specific condition or the event is going to happen. Then the Trojan horse. See, a Trojan horse is a malware disguised as a legitimate software that secretly performs malicious activities. Then backdoor. A backdoor is a hidden method that allow unauthorized access to a system while bypassing the normal authentication. The mobile code. See, the mobile code is the code that move across the different computer platforms and execute without modification. So it is designed to work on multiple operating systems or devices. Then auto router kit, or you can say the virus generator. So an auto router kit or virus generator, this is a tool that is used to automatically create new malware or virus variants. And then the spammer and flooder program. So these are the programs that generate the large volume of unwanted network traffic or message. And the keylogger. See, a keylogger is a malware that secretly records every key pressed on a keyboard. And the rootkit. A rootkit is a collection of sophisticated tools that provides the attackers with administrator access while hiding their presence. Then a zombie, or it is called as bot. A zombie is also called as a bot, which is an infected computer that is remotely controlled by an attacker without the owner's knowledge. So, the malware will come in many of these forms, which includes virus, worms, trojans, logic bombs, backdoors, rootkits, keyloggers, bots. So, each one is designed, each one is designed to achieve different malicious objectives. By understanding how these malware types operate, spread, and compromise the system, the organizations can implement stronger security measures to protect their data, their network, and the users from evolving the cyber threats. So let us see more onto the malware tech terminology. See, when you look at few of the some additional cybersecurity terms which describe how the malware work and how the modern cyber attacks are carried out. So, in that regard, the payload. Just give me a second. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So, in addition to the previous terminologies, we have few more. In that regard, the first one is payload. A payload is the harmful action or the malicious activity that malware performs after successful infecting a system. So, when you think of a malware as a package, the malware first enters the system and then the payload is what it actually does. And a malware payload may have like stealing the passwords or deleting the files mechanism or encrypting the files or sending spam emails or stealing the user information. Many things can happen with the payload. Then the crimeware, which is a malware specifically designed to commit the cybercrime for financial gain. So, a crimeware kit is a toolkit that allow the attackers to easily create and distribute the malware without advanced programming skills. And these kits often include the malware creation tools, automatic spreading mechanism, ready-made payloads, the management dashboards. Even inexperienced attackers can launch the sophisticated attacks. Then, advanced persistent threat. An advanced persistent threat is a highly sophisticated, long-term cyber attack conducted by skilled and well-funded attackers against carefully selected targets. Unlike the ordinary malware, an APT is carefully planned, highly targeted, difficult to detect, or it will be like conducted over the months or even the years. So, the modern malware is defined not only by how it infects the system but also by what it does after the infection. The payload carries out the malicious actions. The crimeware provides the attackers with ready-made tools for cybercrime and advanced persistent threats, which will represent highly sophisticated long-term attacks against the valuable targets. So understanding these concepts will enable the organizations to strengthen their cybersecurity defenses against today's evolving threat landscape. So the classification of malware is very important because we usually think that malware means it comes only either virus, worm, trojan, something like that. But instead of having a general idea about malware, as a security professional, we need to classify it based on two important characteristics like how it is going to spread, the propagation method, and what it does after the infection. That means the payload. So the malware is broadly classified into these two categories based on how it spread, that is the propagation. How does the malware reach the victim? And the second thing, what damage or malicious activity does it perform after the infection? So both aspects are important because two different malware types may spread in the same way but perform different actions. Two malware programs may have the same payload, but they use different propagation methods. Classification based on propagation. And the propagation means the method malware used to spread from one system to another. So when you think of propagation as the delivery method, the first thing is that virus infection. So the virus will spread by attaching themselves to the existing files or the programs. When we use when the user execute the infected program, the virus activates and infects the additional files. And the second thing, some malware is going to spread by taking advantage of weaknesses in software or operating system. So no user interaction may be required. So the malware is classified by both its propagation method and its payload. So the propagation describes how the malware spread through the infected files, or through the software vulnerabilities or the social engineering. While the payload describes the malicious actions it performs, like corrupting data, stealing information, exploiting the system resources, or hiding from detection. Understanding both dimensions enable the organizations to detect, to prevent, and to respond more effectively to the cyber threats. And the classification of malware is also need to understand. We need to understand the two additional classification criteria, that is whether the malware need a host program or whether a malware can replicate. So these classifications help us better understand how the malware behaves. So the malware can also be classified based on the dependency. Does the malware need another program to run, or the replication? Can the malware create the copies of itself? So these characteristics are independent. Number one, this classification is going to answer, can the malware run by itself? Again, there are two categories. One is the parasitic code. This malware survives like a parasite. The malware will survive by attaching itself to another legitimate program. It cannot execute independently. Then, independent self-contained malware. So, this malware programs can execute without attaching to the another application. They are complete programs. So, if you look at the second case, that is classification based on the replication. Now, you may think that, can the malware make copies itself? Yes, there are two categories. One is non-replicating malware, and these malware programs do not automatically create copies of themselves, and replicating malware. So the replicating malware automatically create the copies of itself and spread to additional systems. So this is why such malware spreads very quickly, very quickly. So the malware can also be classified based on whether it requires a host program and whether it can replicate. The host dependent malware, such as virus, relies on legitimate program to execute, while independent malware, such as worms, trojans, bots, and operates on its own. Likewise, the replicating malware spreads automatically by creating copies of itself, whereas non-replicating malware will perform the malicious actions without self-propagation. So understanding these characteristics will help the organizations to implement effective detection, containment, and the prevention strategies. So now let us see about the attack toolkits. See, the availability of attack toolkits has transformed the cybersecurity landscape by lowering the barriers and the entry for cyber criminals. Because today there are many sophisticated malwares can be created, customized, and distributed using pre-built crimeware kits. So this leads to a rapid increase in malware variants that challenge the traditional antivirus solutions. So that is why the organizations, they must therefore adopt the layered security strategies, like including the user awareness, vulnerability management, endpoint protection, and continuous threat monitoring. With all this, it will help to defend against the attacks originating from the diverse threat actors, such as the criminals, activists, organized crime groups, and the nation state agencies. So, the attack toolkits, commonly known as crimeware, They have simplified the creation and deployment of malware by providing the ready-made propagation methods, payloads, and the management tools. As a result, the cyber attack can now be launched by a wide range of threat actors, including criminals, politically motivated groups, organized crime, and nation state agencies, making modern cybersecurity defenses more important than ever. So, advanced persistent threats. Unlike the ordinary cyber attacks, an APT is highly targeted, carefully planned, and carried out over a long period while remaining hidden. So, a well funded, highly organized, and long term cyber attack that uses advanced intrusion techniques and the malware to compromise carefully selected targets. So, the APT attackers will choose specific organizations and patiently work to infiltrate them. So, the advanced persistent threat will represent the highest level of cyber risk because they combine the technical sophistication, long term persistence, and carefully selected targets. So, unlike the ordinary malware attacks that seek immediate financial gain, the APTs often they focus on espionage, intellectual property theft, or distribution of critical infrastructure, then affecting effective defense against APTs will require layered security controls, continuous monitoring, threat intelligence, and the user awareness, and also the rapid incident response capabilities. So, advanced persistent threats are highly sophisticated, long term campaigns conducted by organized and well-funded attackers against carefully selected targets. By combining advanced intrusion techniques, stealth, persistence, and the strategic objectives, the APTs will possess one of the most significant cybersecurity challenges for the governments, businesses, and the critical infrastructure worldwide. So, let us see about the APT attacks. I mean, the APT attackers are not interested in quick attacks. Their goal is to gain long term access to a targeted organization and to achieve the strategic objectives without being detected. They carefully plan every stage of attack. So, advanced persistent threats are successful because they combine human focused attacks like social engineering and spear phishing. So, with the technical exploitation and long term persistence, rather than causing immediate damage, APT groups gradually expand their access, compromise critical systems, and exfiltrate the valuable information while avoiding detection. Effective defense requires the layered security measures, the continuous monitoring, the employee awareness training, the timely patch management, and the rapid incident response. So, APT attacks are carefully planned, multi-stage cyber campaigns that start with the techniques such like the social engineering, spear phishing email, then drive by downloads to gain the initial access. So the attackers then deploy the sophisticated malware to maintain the persistence. They can expand their presence within the target network. We can steal the valuable information or disrupt the critical infrastructure. So making APTs is one of the most dangerous and challenging cybersecurity threats. Yes, it is happening. Then let us learn about the first category, that is viruses. So a computer virus is a piece of malicious software which infect the legitimate programs or the files by inserting a copy of itself into them. When the infected program is executed, the virus also executes without the user knowledge. Without the user knowledge. So the computer viruses remain an important category of malware because they exploit the trusted applications to spread silently. Although the modern security controls have reduced the prevalence of traditional viruses, they still pose the risk in environments with outdated software, removable media, or the poor security practices. So the regular software updates, antivirus protection, the careful handling of email attachments, and the downloads and the user awareness training are essential to reduce the virus infections. So a computer virus is a host dependent, the malware that infect the legitimate program by inserting copies of itself and executing secretly when the host program runs. Through its four life cycle phases, the dormant, propagation, triggering, and execution, a virus can spread across the systems which exploit operating system weaknesses and perform malicious actions like deleting the files, stealing the information, or installing the additional malware. Then, when we understand the internal structure of a virus, it is very important for malware analysis and preparing the countermeasure. So the infection mechanism will determine how the virus is going to spread. The trigger specifies when malicious actions begin, and the payload defines the impact on the system. The modern security solutions will combine the antivirus software, the behavior based detection, the application control, the access control, and the user awareness to prevent the infection and restrict the propagation if an infection happens. So, a computer virus is composed of an infected infection mechanism, a trigger, and a payload. So the infection mechanism will enable the replication. The trigger determines when the virus becomes active, and the payload will perform the intended action. So when we understand all these components and how the virus are prepared, postponed, or embedded into the legitimate programs, the organizations can design effective countermeasure with the effective security control to prevent the infection and to limit the spread of malware. Then the virus classification. So the cybersecurity experts, they usually classify the viruses based on two criteria: the target they infect, the technique they use to hide themselves. Viruses can be classified based on the target. What does the virus infect? The concealment, like how does the virus avoid detection? So this classification depends on which part of the computer the virus attacks. A boot sector virus is a virus that infect the master boot record or the boot sector of a storage device. Whereas the file infection virus, which is the file infector, which is a virus that infect the executable operating system files or the application files. Then the macro virus. A macrovirus is a virus that infects the documents containing the macros rather than executable programs. And the multi-party virus. A multi-party virus is a virus that infects multiple targets using more than one infection method. The classification by concealment. See, there are again few more types. One is encrypted virus. So an encrypted virus is a virus whose code is encrypted to make detection of more difficult. And the stealth virus is a virus that actively hide its presence from the users and security software. And the polymorphic virus. A polymorphic virus is a virus that changes its code or encryption pattern every time it replicates while keeping the same behavior. Then metamorphic virus. A metamorphic virus is a virus that completely rewrite its own code every time it replicates, changing both its signature and internal structure while preserving its functionality. So the computer viruses can be classified by the target they infect, like the boot sector, executable file, the macro-enabled document, or multiple system components, and by the techniques they use to conceal themselves, including encryption, the stealth, the polymorphism, and metamorphism. Understanding these classifications will enable the cybersecurity professionals to develop more effective detection, prevention, and the response strategies against evolving the malware threats. Then the macro and scripting virus. The macro and scripting virus. Unlike the traditional viruses that infect the executable programs, these viruses mainly infect the documents such as like Microsoft Word, Excel, many things. So because the documents are shared frequently through the email and cloud storage, the macro virus become one of the fastest spreading malware types. So according to the NIST 7298, a macro virus is a virus that attach itself to the documents, and it can use the macro programming capabilities of the documents application to execute and to propagate. That means a macro virus is a malware that is hidden inside a document that automatically run when the document is opened. So a macro is a small program that is written to automate repetitive task in an application. So a macrovirus is a malware that is embedded within a document that the user use the application's macro programming capabilities to execute and to spread. So these viruses became widespread in the mid 1990s because the office documents were commonly shared and macros were enabled more freely. Today, the built-in Office security features and the antivirus software provide the stronger protection, but the user should still avoid enabling the macros in documents received from unknown or untrusted sources. So that is why the modern Office security features and antivirus solutions, they are providing strong protection, but the user must remain cautious when enabling the macros in a document from untrusted sources. Then we have the category of email virus. See, an email virus is a virus that spread through email message, usually as an infected attachment or the malicious link. An email virus spread through infected email attachments or the malicious links and relies on user interaction to begin the infection. So the Melissa virus demonstrated how combining the macroviruses, social engineering, and automatic email propagation can result in rapid worldwide outbreaks. So the modern email security, the macro protection, the antivirus software, and the user awareness are essential defenses against these attacks. So, email viruses will continue to be a major cybersecurity threat because they exploit the human trust rather than technical vulnerabilities alone. The Melissa virus demonstrated how combining social engineering, macro enabled documents, and the automatic email propagation could overwhelm the organizations in a short time. So the modern defenses like secure email gateways, the macro restrictions, antivirus softwares, and the continuous user awareness training are critical for preventing the similar attacks. So the email viruses will spread through the infected email attachments or the malicious links, and it rely on the user actions such as opening the documents or enabling the macros to begin the infection. So the Melissa virus demonstrated how a macro virus combined with the automatic email propagation could rapidly infect the thousands of systems, highlighting the importance of secure email practices, the macro protection, and user awareness in modern cybersecurity. Then the countermeasures for the virus. See, the virus countermeasures are the techniques and the actions that are used to prevent, um, detect, identify, remove, and recover from the computer virus infection. Why? Because the ultimate goal is to prevent the infection, to minimize the damage, and to restore the normal system operation. So then the ideal defense against computer virus is protection. But because the new malware constantly evolves, complete prevention is not always possible. Therefore, the organizations rely on a combination of detection, identification, and the removal to manage the virus infections. When a virus cannot be safely removed, replacing the infected program with a clean version from a trusted source or backup is the safest and most reliable solution. So, the effective virus protection always requires a layered defense strategy. While prevention, which remains the primary objective, the organization must also invest in rapid detection, the accurate identification, the reliable malware, removable and tested backup and recovery procedures, the regular software updates, the endpoint protection, access controls, the user awareness training, and the secure backups together provide a comprehensive defense against evolving the virus threats. So let us take 5 minutes break. The class will start at 8:50 again. We will continue at 8:50. Take 5 minutes break. Okay, we will continue the class. Are you able to hear me? Yeah, thank you. So now the next category is the worms. The computer worms, even it is also a virus, but the worms and the viruses are both self-replicating malware. They spread in different way because a computer worm is a self-replicating malware program that spread automatically across the networks without requiring a host program or the user intervention. So a worm is a complete independent program. It does not need to attach itself to another file. So email, there are some worms which send themselves as email attachment. Once a recipient opens the attachment, the worm infects the computer, then the email itself to additional victims. Then we have the remote execution. A worm will search for vulnerable computers on a network. If it finds a system with a software vulnerability, it remotely execute the malware. It remotely execute the malware. Remote login. Some worms attempt to gain access using the weak password, stolen credentials, the default administrator accounts. After logging in, the worm copies itself to the remote computer. Then the propagation phase. This is the most important phase for the worms. During the propagation, the worm will search for another computer, it establish a connection, and it copy itself and execute on the new system. So the process repeats automatically. So if you see here, a computer worm is an independent, self-replicating malware program that spread automatically across the networks by using the methods like email, remote execution, and remote login. Like viruses, the worms have dormant, propagation, triggering, and execution phases. But unlike the virus, they do not require a host program. Their ability is to spread rapidly and exploit the network vulnerabilities to make them one of the most dangerous forms of malware. So the computer worms are particularly dangerous because they combine automatic self-replication with network-based propagation, allowing them to spread rapidly without relying on user actions. The modern worm defenses require timely software patching, the strong authentication, network segmentation, the intrusion detection system, the endpoint protection, and the continuous monitoring to identify abnormal network behavior before the large scale outbreaks are happening. A computer worm is an independent, self replicating malware program that automatically spread across the network using methods and through its dormant propagation, triggering, and execution phases, a worm can rapidly infect large number of systems, conceal its presence, and perform malicious actions, making it one of the fastest spreading and most destructive forms of malware. So now let us see the worm propagation model. So in the previous slide, we learned how the worm will spread automatically through the networks. So we need to understand how fast can a worm spread across the network. So the cybersecurity researchers, they use the worm propagation model to estimate and predict the speed of infection, because a well-designed worm can infect hundreds of computers, thousands of computers, even millions of computers within a very short time. So the key variables we need to understand in the formula: one, infected systems, I of t. It represents the number of infected computers at the time t. The value changes over the time as the worm is going to spread. And S of t, the suspectable systems. S of t represents the number of computers that are vulnerable but not yet infected at a time t. These computers are still healthy, but they can become infected. Then beta, that is the infection rate. So the symbol beta represents the rate at which the worm spreads from infected computers to the suspectable computers. It is going to describe how quickly the infection is going to happen. The higher beta, which means the faster spreading, more infection, the larger outbreaks. The lower beta, which means the slower spreading, fewer infections, and the easier contamination. And n is the total population. So the symbol n is going to represent the total number of computers in the network. So a worm propagation model will help the cybersecurity professional to understand and to predict how quickly a worm will spread through a network, and the model uses the the symbols I of t for infected systems, S of t for suspectable systems, and beta for the infection rate, and n for the total number of systems. So by reducing the infection rate through the timely patching, the network segmentation, and security controls, the organizations can significantly limit the impact of worm outbreaks. So then we have the Morris swarm. So the Morris worm is historically important because it was one of the first internet worm to spread on a large scale and demonstrate how a self-replicating program could disrupt thousands of computers worldwide. So one of the first internet worms that spread automatically across Unix system by exploiting the software vulnerabilities and weak passwords. So it became one of the earliest major cybersecurity incident on the internet. So the Morris worm was one of the first internet worm to demonstrate the devastating impact of automatic self-replication across the network by combining the password cracking, the software vulnerabilities, exploitation, and the remote shell access. It infected thousands of Unix systems and highlighted the critical importance of strong passwords, timely software patching, secure network service, and effective incident response also. Then the more recent worm attacks. After Morris, the cybercriminals developed more advanced worms that spread much faster, used multiple attack techniques, and caused worldwide damage. So, the Melissa worm was released in 1998 or in the early stage of 1999. So, the Melissa is important because it was among the first malware to combine multiple attack techniques. And then the Code Red, the next major worm was Code Red. It was released in July 2001. Unlike Melissa, the Code Red did not require user to open email attachments. Instead, it exploited a vulnerability in Microsoft Internet Information Service (IIS). Then the Code Red 2. It is within a month later, another variant is appeared, that is Code Red 2. It was released in August 2001. It also targeted Microsoft IaaS, but with an important difference. The main difference is instead of simply spreading, the Code Red 2 is also installed a backdoor. So a backdoor is the hidden method that allow the attackers to access a system without the normal authentication. And then NIMDA, the next famous worm was NIMDA. It is released in September 2001. The word NIMDA is simply admin or spelled backwards. Okay, so NIMDA combined multiple malware characteristics. It behaves like a worm, it behaves like a virus, it behaves like a mobile code. This made it much more powerful than earlier worm. The modern worm evolved beyond simple self-replication. The Melissa demonstrated the power of combining email propagation with macro viruses. The Code Red and Code Red 2 showed how software vulnerabilities and backdoors could rapidly compromise internet connected servers. And NIMDA introduced multi-vector propagation, spreading simultaneously through email, network share, web server, web clients, and existing backdoors. These attacks reinforced the importance of software patching, secure configurations, network monitoring, and the layered cybersecurity defense. The modern worms evolved from simple self-replicating programs into sophisticated multi-vector threats capable of exploiting the software vulnerabilities, spreading through email and shared network, installing backdoors and combining multiple malware characteristics. Likewise, then the criminals continued improving the worms by making them faster, stealthier, and more destructive. So these attacks will highlight how the worms will evolve to exploit the software vulnerabilities, spread through the emails, install the backdoors, and even they disable the security software. So the SQL Slammer worm appeared in early 2003. It became famous because of its extremely rapid spread. A buffer overflow occurs when a program receives more data than the allocated memory that can hold, allowing the attackers to execute the malicious code. The attackers will exploit these programming error to run unauthorized instructions. Then Sobig.f. Unlike the SQL Slammer, Sobig.f focused on email propagation. So Sobig.f transformed infected computers into the spam engines. So a proxy server will forward the internet traffic. If it is misconfigured and open to everyone, the attackers can misuse it. So Sobig.f will use these open proxies to send massive volumes of spam emails. So why was this dangerous? See, the worm that is filled inbox with spam increased internet traffic, helped with the distributed additional malware. So the MyDoom, that is the next famous worm that was introduced in 2004, it became one of the fastest spreading email worm ever recorded. So there are many features. The MyDoom, which is a mass mailed itself through email, installed with a backdoor. So the worm automatically sent itself into the email contacts, collected email address, the address books. So the more we have the victims, the faster it is going to spread. So that is why the modern worms become increasingly sophisticated by combining rapid network propagation with additional malicious capabilities. The SQL Slammer exploited software vulnerabilities to spread. within minutes. So Big.F transformed infected systems into spam engines. The MyDome combines mass email propagation with backdoor installation, and Warsaw disabled security software while spreading through email. These attacks demonstrate the importance of improving the timely patching mechanisms, providing secure email practices, and updating the security software and layered defense mechanisms and all. So then we have another one, that is WannaCry. So WannaCry demonstrated how a worm could combine automatic network propagation with ransomware, causing global disruption within hours. So WannaCry was a ransomware. It is a worm that spread automatically across the networks by exploiting a window vulnerability and then encrypted victims' file, demanding a ransom for a recovery. Because the WannaCry was a landmark cyber attack because it combined the self-propagation behavior of a worm with the destructive payload of ransomware. By exploiting an unpatched SMB vulnerability in Windows system, it rapidly infected hundreds of thousands of computers across more than 150 countries. The attack highlighted the importance of timely software updates, network segmentation, regular backups, and the layered cybersecurity defenses. WannaCry was a globally significant cyber attack that combined the rapid self-propagation of a worm with the destructive payload of ransomware. So here, by exploiting an unpatched SMB vulnerability in Windows system, it infected hundreds of thousands of computers across more than 150 countries, and it encrypted the critical files and demanded the ransomware payments and all. So the state of worm technology, how it is. So the modern worms are much more advanced than the earlier worms. They are faster, smarter, harder to detect, able to carry many different types of malware. So the state of worm technology refers to the advanced features and capabilities that found in modern computer worms that enable them to spread rapidly, evade the detection, the exploit of multiple vulnerabilities, and deliver various malicious payloads. Unlike the early worms, the modern worms will combine multiple attack techniques into a single malware program. So, a multi platform worm is a worm that can infect multiple operating systems instead of targeting only one platform. A multi-exploit worm is a worm that uses several different vulnerabilities or the attack methods to spread instead of relying on one weakness. It tries many. It tries many. The modern worms have evolved into highly sophisticated malware capable of infecting multiple platforms, exploiting various vulnerabilities, spreading rapidly, changing their code to evade detection, delivering additional malicious payloads, and exploiting the zero-day vulnerabilities. And these capabilities make the worms one of the most dangerous cyber threats, which requiring the organizations to implement layered security measures, rapid path management, patch management, the behavior-based detection, and the continuous monitoring. Then the countermeasure for worms. So to defend against the worm, we need to have a well-established countermeasure. So the worm countermeasure or the security techniques that are used to detect, to prevent, and contain and limit the spread of computer worms across the network. Unlike the viruses, the worm is spreading automatically throughout the network. Therefore, the worm defense focus not only on the infected computer but also on network traffic. So defending against the worms will require both host-based and network-based security measures, while the antivirus software helps to detect the worms on infected systems. The additional techniques like the signature-based filtering, traffic filtering, payload analysis, scan detection, and rate limiting, these are all essential to identify the abnormal network behavior and to contain the worm outbreak before the spread they spread across an organization. So the effective worm countermeasure will combine the antivirus protection with advanced network-based defense like signature filtering, traffic filtering, payload analysis, scan detection, and rate limiting. Together, these techniques will detect abnormal worm behavior, which contain the rapid network propagation, and it help the organizations to protect the critical systems from widespread of malware outbreaks. So, according to the NIST SP 828, the mobile code consists of program that can be transferred unchanged to different computing platforms and executed with the same behavior. So, the mobile code is executable code that moves from one computer to another and runs on the receiving systems without requiring recompilation. So the mobile code will refer to executable program that move from a remote system to a local system and it run without modification across different platforms. While the technologies like JavaScript, VBScript, ActiveX, and Java applets, they are widely used for the legitimate purpose. They can also be exploited to deliver the malware. So the mobile phone worms such as the common barrier, demonstrated that portable devices are also vulnerable, which are spreading through the Bluetooth and MMS while causing the data loss, service disruption, and the financial cost. So, the mobile code powers many of today's web applications and cloud services, which make it an essential part of modern computing. However, because it executes on client device, the attackers often exploit the scripting technologies like JavaScript, VBScript to deliver malware or to steal the sensitive information. Similarly, the mobile phone worms have demonstrated that smartphones are also attractive targets. The organizations should implement the secure browser settings, application with whitelisting, the mobile device management, timely software update, and the user awareness training to reduce the risk associated with the mobile code and the mobile malware. The client side vulnerabilities. See, now we need to look at how the attackers infect the user simply by getting them to visit a website. And these attacks target the client side, that is the user device and software such as the web browser and the browser plugins. So a client side vulnerability is a weakness in software running on a user device like web browser, browser plugin, or document viewer that attackers can exploit to compromise the system. Unlike the server side attacks, these attacks will focus on the end user computer or the mobile device. So, a driver by download, which is an attack in which the malware is automatically downloaded or installed when a user visits a malicious or compromised website, often by exploiting the browser or plugin vulnerabilities and all. So, a watering hole attack, which is an attack in which the cyber criminals compromise the website that their intended victims are known to visit, then wait for those victims to become infected. So the client-side vulnerabilities exploit the weaknesses in browsers, browser plugins, and other software running on user devices. The drive-by downloads infect the systems through the malicious or compromised websites. So the watering of whole attacks will target the trusted websites frequently visited by specific victims, and the malware string will deliver the malware through the malicious online advertisements, keeping software updated, minimizing unnecessary plugins, using secure browsing practices, and deploying the endpoint protection, which are very essential defenses against all these attacks. So the modern cyber attacks increasingly focus on the client side, where the browsers and applications interact directly with users. The attackers frequently exploit the outdated browsers, vulnerable plugins, and trusted websites to deliver the malware through drive-by downloads. So watering hole attacks and Malvesting the campaigns, the organization should adapt a defense in depth approach by maintaining up to date software, minimizing the browser plugin, which will be implementing the secure web gateways, enabling the endpoint detections and response, that is EDR, and also providing the continuous cybersecurity awareness trainings. Then, clickjacking or UI redress attack. Unlike the malware attacks, clickjacking mainly tricks the user into clicking something different from what they intended. A clickjacking attack is a web attack in which an attacker tricks a user into clicking on a hidden or disguised element, which will be causing the user to perform an unintended action. So the user believes they are clicking one button, but they are actually clicking another hidden button controlled by the attacker. So, clickjacking is a client-side attack that manipulate a web page user interface to trick the user into clicking hidden or okay, Sarah. Um, Submitting the sensitive information. So the modern browser protections and secure web applications are designed and the user awareness are very essential with the defense against the clickjacking attacks and all. So by hijacking the clicks and keystrokes through the transparent layers and embedded frames, the attackers can perform unauthorized actions on behalf of users, which making secure browser configurations, protective security headers are very important. Then social engineering. Many successful cyber attacks do not begin by hacking a computer. Instead, they begin by tricking a user into helping the attacker. This is called social engineering. The social engineering is the art of manipulating or deceiving the people into revealing the confidential information or performing the actions that compromise the security of their own system. So instead of attacking the computers, the attacker attacks the human trust. People naturally tend to trust others, help others, or act quickly during the emergencies. So the attackers exploit these human behaviors. And the social engineering attack exploit the human psychology rather than the technical vulnerabilities. Through the techniques such as the spam, phishing, the Trojan horse, and the mobile Trojans, the attackers will trick the users into revealing sensitive information or installing the malicious software. Because these attacks they rely on human error and trust. Effective defense requires a combination of user awareness, security training, multi-factor authentication, and the safe computing practices. Now, the payload, which is causing the system corruption. See, the payload is the part of the malware which is responsible for carrying out the attacker's intended malicious actions. So in this, there are various categories we have. Mainly, the thing is that a payload is the malicious action that performed by malware after it successfully infecting a system. And see, the ransomware has become one of the most profitable cybercrime model because strong encryption prevents the victims from accessing the critical data. So the organization should adapt a defense in depth strategy that include offline backups, the endpoint detection and response, the rapid patch management, the network segmentation and security awareness training to minimize the risk and impact of destructive malware payload and the payload causing system corruptions. See, most people think the malware only affect the files, databases, then operating systems. But however, some advanced malware can also damage physical equipment and the industrial system. This makes the cyber attacks a threat not only to information but also to the critical infrastructure. So that is why the evolution of malware from file corruption to physical system disruption demonstrates the growing coverage of cybersecurity and operational technology. So the attacks like Stuxnet that proved that the malware can impact the industrial infrastructure, while the logic bombs highlight the risk possessed by insider threat and hidden malicious code. So the organizations should combine the secure software development practices, the code reviews, strong change management, the continuous monitoring, and defense in depth control to protect both the information system and the critical infrastructure. Then the attack agent bots, the attack agent bots. So here, if you see, The botnets, they represent one of the most versatile and dangerous form of malware because they transform ordinary computers into the remotely controlled attack platforms. The modern botnets, they support a wide range of malicious activities, which include the DDoS attacks, the credential theft, the spam distribution, the malware delivery, and online fraud. So the organization should implement a defense in depth strategy that combines the endpoint detection and response, intrusion detection system, network traffic analysis, DNS monitoring, threat intelligence, and the user awareness to identify and to disturb the botnet activity before it can cause the widespread damage. Widespread damage. So the information theft payloads are designed to secretly collect the sensitive information rather than destroy the system. So the keyloggers will capture every keystroke. The spyware monitors a wide range of user activities. Phishing devices users into revealing the confidential information through the fake communications, and spear the phishing increases the likelihood of success by using personalized information about specific targets. So protecting against these threats will require the technical controls like endpoint protection, multi-factor authentication, together with continuous user awareness and verification of suspicious communications. It is very important. So that is why through the techniques such as keyloggers, spyware, phishing, and spear phishing attackers, they capture the credentials, the personal information, and the confidential organizational data. So protecting against these threats require a combination of strong technical controls, secure authentication, and continuous monitoring, and well-informed users who can recognize the report of suspicious activities. Now, let us see the graphical representation of rootkits and backdoor. Rootkits and backdoor. So, these payloads are especially dangerous because they allow the attackers to return an infected system even after the initial attack is over. So a backdoor is also called as trapdoor, which is a hidden or secret entry point into a program or the system that allows an attackers to bypass the normal authentication and security controls. And then the rootkit. So a rootkit is a collection of malicious tools that provide the attackers with the administrator level access while hiding their presence from users and security software. So the backdoors and rootkits, they enable the attackers to maintain the long-term unauthorized access while avoiding the detection. A backdoor bypasses the normal authentication through a hidden entry point, whereas a rootkit conceals the malware and the attacker activities by modifying the operating system components. Together, they create the persistent, stealthy compromises that require layered security controls, continuous monitoring, and the advanced detection techniques to identify and to eliminate. So then we have the countermeasures. See, for every mechanism, we need to have a countermeasure, right? Like various policies, definitions, all these things to make sure that everything is protected in a good way. So here the effective malware defense begins with prevention, supported by strong security policies, user awareness, vulnerability management, and the threat mitigation. So, effective malware countermeasures rely on layered security strategies that prioritize the prevention through the strong policies and all this. When prevention is not enough, the organization must rapidly detect, identify, and remove the malware using the resilient, timely, and transparent security controls that protect against both internal and external threat while minimizing the disruption to the normal operations. So, an activity trap is a monitor where the behavior of programs while they are running and identify the malware based on the suspicious actions rather than the file content. Instead of analyzing the files, it analyzes the behavior. So, the modern antivirus softwares will belong to the fourth generation. Why? Because see the modern malware evolving rapidly by making signature based detection alone insufficient. Because today's endpoint protection platform combine signature database, heuristic analysis, behavior based detection, cloud threat intelligence, and the access control to identify both known and emerging threats. The organizations should keep the antivirus definitions updated, whereas it enable the real-time protection, complement antivirus with endpoint detection and responses, and maintain the regular software updates as a part of the comprehensive defense in-depth strategy. So then we have the sandbox analysis. See, the sandbox analysis is a security technique in which the suspicious or potentially malicious software is executed inside an isolated, controlled environment to observe its behavior without affecting the real system. Instead of running unknown software directly on our computer, it is the first tested in a sandbox. So, potential malicious code is executed inside an eliminated sandbox or virtual machines. An emulated sandbox is a simulated computer environment that intimates a real operating system for testing software. The malware believes it is running on a normal computer. In reality, everything is simulated. So here, the sandbox analysis is going to address all these challenges by executing suspicious software in an isolated environment and monitoring its behavior rather than its appearance, combined with endpoint detection and response, threat intelligence, and the behavior based analysis. So, sandboxing has become an essential technology for identifying advanced, persistent threats and the sophisticated malware before they compromise the production systems. Then, host based behavior blocking software. The host-based behavior blocking software continuously monitor the action of running programs on a computer and block suspicious behavior in a real time. Unlike the traditional antivirus solution that depends primarily on signatures or heuristics, behavior blocking software focus on what a program does, making it highly effective against unknown, zero-day, and behaviorally suspicious malware. Although the malware must begin executing before its action can be analyzed, this technology significantly reduce the impact of the modern attacks by stopping the malicious behavior. So that is why the host-based behavior blocking software enhance the endpoint security by continuously monitoring the real-time behavior of running programs. and immediately blocking suspicious actions before the significant damage happens. By focusing on malicious behavior rather than known signatures, it provides effective protection against zero-day threat and advanced malware, making it an essential component of modern layered cybersecurity defenses. So then, lastly, we have perimeter scanning approaches. So here in this, the perimeter scanning, which remains a foundational element of enterprise cybersecurity, where it is going to provide centralized inspection of network traffic, which will be entering and leaving an organization's environment. But however, the modern attacks increasingly bypass the traditional network boundaries through encrypted traffic, cloud service, remote work, and insider threat. So therefore, the organizations should combine the perimeter defense with the endpoint detection and response, zero trust architecture, the behavior based monitoring, and the continuous threat intelligence to achieve the comprehensive protection. So with this, we completed the module 5, and in the next session, we will start the module 6. So before that, if I receive any official announcement from the college related to the exam pattern, I will announce it on the blackboard. So as I said at the starting of the class, I have already given the recordings on the course message box. So you can check for the recordings module 3 and module 4 in the course message box, and the link is provided in that. You can access it. Thank you all. Start preparing for your midterm exams, and you have the activity, that is assignment 1. The due date is 16th July. That means still you have 4 more days. So on or before the due date, please submit the solution. Thank you all. Yes, Sarah. Yes, Miss Sarah, please tell me. And one more thing, the attendance for the previous weeks is posted on the banner system. So you all can check your attendance on the banner system. If any doubt, I think there won't be any open questions. Only MCQs will be there. That is what I heard from the college, but still I am waiting for the official email regarding the exam pattern. But 99% they are confirmed that there won't be any open questions. Only there will be MCQs. Yeah, sure. That is what I told. Before next class, I will get confirmation and I will announce it in the Blackboard announcement. Thank you all. The attendance for today's session is also recorded. See you all in the next session. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask, or else you can leave. Thank you.